Okay, America.
Oh,
This is all right. You can make all the
I,
hand gestures you want.
no, I was
Fingers in
readjusting my
people's
camera.
faces, just like
I,
you're in New York. It's all right. All right. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, good night. This is your anti-social horror-ish hour instead of the anti-social hour-ish show. Uh, Today we're doing some special recordings for the Portland Horror Film Festival. That's horror, not whoa. That would be an entirely different film festival, which we're not allowed to show on YouTube or, well, we could. Might get a lot of hits that way, though. All right. Today we have got a really interesting cat because I have seen at least two of his films in full, and peeked at his Instagram and not wearing a bikini, so that's a plus. So this is Mr. Ehrland Hollingsworth, which sounds very London-esque, but I assure you, the boy is not from London. I guarantee. Uh, Alan, welcome. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. No, not from London, from California. But yeah, no, I'm doing great. Excited for Portland Horror Fest. I guess I actually just am wearing the Panic Fest T-shirt. It's not the Portland Horror. I it was
I'm wearing
um
my horror
uh
hangout shirt, so totally get it. Totally get it. I just wore something that I didn't ever wear a bra with, and I guess
Yeah, same. That's how I
I
make
dig
most of my clothing decisions.
it. That's how I usually have a dog on my lap, and she serves as that lifting device. So, sir, how did you end up with a name like Ellen Hollingsworth, sir?
Oh, it's not a super interesting story. My dad's name is John. So he was like, everyone sort of his age was named John, So he wanted his kids to have unique names. So they went through like a list of like thousands of names and like, got that down to hundreds and then sort of whittled away at it. And originally I was going to be named Aiden,
Oh, I like.
which used to be like a more uncommon name. Now
Yeah,
like like a
yeah. I
couple.
didn't know an Aiden or a Heather as a kid, but now they're everywhere.
Yeah, they're now, yeah. And then my cousin, if she was gonna be a boy, she was gonna be named Aiden, so they switched it, and they said no, it's Ehrland, and which is Swedish for like foreigner or stranger, which I kind of like. It
That
feels,
is very cool.
yeah. And so, but then they added the H in there, to because they didn't want people pronouncing it Erland. Ultimately, it
Then you
just
sound like a
confuses
truck
people.
driver from Tennessee.
Yeah, exactly. Erland. I hate Erland. People call me Erland all the time. Actually, they always forget. Even in emails,
Oh,
they'll forget the H.
I always check with people because my name is spelled weird. So, like, I spelled it the way Betty Davis did with the E, because I think
Mm-hmm.
people should live a why not life.
Uh
That's
huh.
that's my reasoning. And which people understand. And then I still get Keith. Hey, Keith. Yeah, or Lathe, which is the other one.
Lathe.
Lathe, yeah.
Uh huh.
So I
Yeah.
just changed it to Auntie. Auntie is it much easier for people.
Yeah. The people know how that's pronounced. Yeah.
Auntie
I was
Social.
surprised you knew it was pronounced Ireland.
I'm old.
Well, most people like.
Old people
uh,
hear names. We actually you've been through enough life experience. You've met enough people. I was in the military at one point, and well, you're from California, so there's a
yeah.
bazillion people there too. So there's like you get to meet people. You know that everybody pronounces like, what's your name? It's Fiona, and how does that spell? Klimsiobh. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, everybody is.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Mm.
so obviously you
Um,
have no sense of humor, which makes a lot of sense.
uh,
For
yeah.
those who don't know, Ireland is also the director of another film that's not in the festival this year. It's called Homestead. Is it The Homestead or Homestead? I believe it's Homestead. I
Homestead.
thought so.
Yeah.
See, I
Yeah.
try to get the names right because that's so broad.
Yeah.
You got to put
Yeah.
tags on everything. Um, and one of the reasons I was drawn to that flick is that besides Brian Krause, is it Krause? Oh, Krause. Brian Krause. Yeah. Whatever. some white guy kid. Was that I hate Westerns and I wanted to see this movie because the women are freaking ballsy as all get out. And I wanted to see, I was in the mood to see a movie with chicks that were like not taking any guff from anybody. And that was the one that was recommended to me. And I decided it was going to be one of my top fives for women that don't take crap from people. So I was already a fan of yours before I was told you had a film in the festival.
Cool. Wow, that's so cool. Yeah, I so you just had stumbled upon it elsewhere, wasn't part of the film. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I don't like really meet too many people that like have seen Homestead. So um uh
I don't meet people who see my podcast. So
yeah, no, but it's like, oh shit, people watch it. You got to put it out there that
I
like
hire
don't
people.
really.
Exactly.
No.
So, but you started as a little kid, you were like wanting to do film too, right? You were just, even when you were like fifth grade, sixth grade, you were like, let's make little movies on the tubes.
Yeah, I mean, basically, I mean, I think that's sort of like the story of like most people who sort of make films these days. They were just like, oh yeah, let's make movies with our friends, and so yeah, I was like doing stuff in like fifth grade, sixth grade.
Was it
Just like
horror movies or was it,
no, 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 it was just stuff. I don't even it was genreless, it was boundless. It was just no, it was just that stuff that we thought was funny. Um, so like yeah, it's not sometimes I go back and like I watch them, I'm like, oh, you were doing a pretty good job actually, like for what you were, you had no idea. So there was some cool stuff.
Did you do
But
special
then
effects too? Because like every kid I talk to does special effects now. That's what I did, special effects.
oh
I finally got out of school.
no, not particularly. No, I was never like I think we'd sort of like layer things over. I remember we did this one video which was it was just all in reverse. We were just like we figured out, we found the reverse button and we're like, this is the coolest thing ever. And then just started doing like camera tricks with it. We were doing like Harry Potter stuff where it was like you drop the broom and the broom comes back into your hand, and we were like, that's the coolest thing ever. So we just made a movie about that. I think that was like what we were proudest of. We were like, this is, we discovered something that nobody else.
Geniuses.
Yeah, yeah. I remember at the end we like put like, if you want to know how this movie was done, put this movie in reverse. We're like, oh, it's gonna be surprising to people.
It becomes a song by the Arctic Monkeys.
Yeah, yeah. So
And suddenly Memento is nothing to anybody else, right? That was
yeah. But I mean, as far as like special effects, I was actually never super into like doing that of like, oh, like how do you do practical effects? Because as a kid, definitely, even sort of I never kind of thought that I could do it to like the right degree, like to do it well enough. Like I always wanted to like look really good, and so it was kind of constraining yourself with like, no,
you had a director's brain even as a child.
well,
I gotta look right. I have to have it right.
Well, it was also sort of like lack of ambition, It's sort of like, I was just like, I want it to be good. Like, I don't want anyone to sort of be like, hey, what about that thing? Which of course they're gonna do anyways. Was gonna look as good as they thought they were. So yeah, it was always trying to sort of like make the best version, but sort of the things that you have, and don't try to kind of like go beyond your limits. That's at least how I had approached it. Because I just
So did you enter high school thinking, well, maybe this could be a career for me? Or did you enter high school going, wow, the beach looks good?
No, yeah, I guess so. I basically when I was 7, I think around, I was like, I wanted to be an author. That was my thing, and the story I always say is that like I didn't read enough books, but I watched enough movies, I guess. But because my problem was every time I start reading a book, I would just be like, I want to write now, and then I'd go and like go start writing something, and I'd be like, this sucks, and then I'd stop, and I wouldn't write, and I also wouldn't read, so,
There's television.
yeah, because I was just so into like just like, oh, I can make this thing right now.
Yeah.
And
yeah, it's hard, man. It's like ADD world. Your brain just goes, I want to do it now.
Exactly. So I couldn't, sit down and really read read that many books, and I wasn't a fast reader as well, and I always felt bad about that. But and then then I just did a bunch of acting, really.
Yeah, were you in LA area? Were you down south of that? Or, no?
No, it was just like theater,
Oh,
like community theater or school
that's actually
theater.
some of the better acting I've seen in the world. It's community
Yeah,
theater.
they can be really good,
Yeah,
there's always one person like that guy's the good one.
exactly. And then there's
Yeah,
the rest. You're going,
yeah,
yeah, Mom, you make great cookies. Thanks for coming tonight. Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah,
yeah,
you were the star. That's right. I forgot.
exactly. So I
Any
just
plays
did.
that stick out that you were part of, or
Well, I guess like kind of, my when I was in like senior year of high school, we did Les Mis, and I was Javert. So that was I guess sort of like the peak of everything, in terms of like, okay, now you're doing like the Javert thing, you're doing Les Mis, you know. So that was probably like kind of that thing. I actually wanted to play Valjean. I was like, I remember when they sent out like the audition sheet, and they were like, "Are there any roles that you wouldn't accept?" And I was like, "Okay, well, if you're asking, I will only accept Valjean." That was what I wrote down. I was like, "No, I'm not doing freaking," because I was always cast as the I don't know if it's like the heel, I guess, but it was the older like man that talks like blah, 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 blah,
you were a
the
rough
Javert.
guy? There's always a
Yeah,
rough guy.
yeah, and I was always like, why? I just like never felt that was like exactly me. Um, uh, but I guess it's especially like doing high school theater or like community theater. There's only like so much of a pool of actors that you can have, and so I guess I kind of had the most presence out of people. That was like, oh, you can do this. And so I was like, I don't want to play Javert. I've done that. I'm always doing that. Like I want to play someone with sort of, like deep emotions and like touchy, like, oh, look at man out of
I want to feel. I want to emote.
yeah, I'm so sad and passionate about this.
Look, I can cry.
Yeah. Exactly. I think I wanted to do that. I wanted to sort of like stretch myself. So when I was, yeah, I remember when like the director came and it was like, I can't cast you as Valjean. Nobody can play Javert. And I was like, fine, I will play Javert for you.
I'll take it
Uh,
for the team.
yeah, I was like, if it's okay for the show, I'll do it for the show. Like,
But you owe
um,
me.
yeah. But I was very explicitly, I was like, I didn't, I was sort of like okay with playing Javert, but I did not want to play Thenardier. That was my one thing. Because I was like, I can play Thenardier, that's fine. Like that'll be. I was like, that'll be a fun time. It'll be cute. It's like whatever kind of. He's more of the show stealer. But I was like,
Yeah.
I don't want to do that. I don't want to fall into that. That thing. But that was I stopped acting mostly like after high school, and yeah, because it was just. But I was in a lot of uh, like community like storybook theater as well, where it was cool because it was like they were like 45-minute plays that were adapted from like children's books
Oh,
and
I was
stuff.
gonna say, yeah, it's like more like a children's theater type of thing.
Yeah, and that was really fun because you'd have these like elementary school, middle school kids come on their field trip to it, and you just had a month to put the whole thing together. It was like probably like 9 rehearsals in total, and so you like went through them. So you could do like 5 a year, and
So,
that was
Ehrland,
that
your
was.
Peter Pan, let me tell you, your Peter Pan must reach into the inner depths of you. Yeah, dude.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember I did Christmas Carol one year. I remember the director coming to me and being like, he totally like played Ebenezer Scrooge in like a completely different way than I'd ever expected. And I was like, what does that mean? Like,
Was I too
for
happy?
some, no, he was just like he was like you've really like explored the character of Ebenezer Scrooge here, but that was I don't know why I brought that up.
This is what happens in my, just so you know, if you look through some of my old videos, I have people talking about stuff that they're always telling me afterwards, why did I even talk about that? Because it's just hanging out in my living room. That's why we do.
Yeah, yeah. On the TV.
That's right.
Um, yeah.
Change the channel.
Uh, yeah. um, but I did a lot of improv in high school and stuff. That was sort
Oh,
of my
and
yeah.
I'm from Second City.
I know you're yeah, you're really into improv. So I was just bring it up.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, you
that's
already
probably
got
my
the points.
uh, uh,
You already got
but
points.
that's
So-
yeah. That was probably my favorite sort of actually like kind of acting thing, I guess, is doing
because you
improv.
could do anything and anything could be thrown at you, and there it is. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
fine.
And you're
You're
like,
always
and
by
it's just
going.
like the thing that's like created here and now. And I'm not like an explicitly competitive person, but I'm always like a little bit like internally competitive, you
Mhm.
know and so it's like when you're doing plays and stuff, it's like who's got the most lines, who's whatever,
Yeah.
and like that type of like stuff of like what's the best thing, I'm
Who's
gonna
got the best costume?
um yeah which is but like in improv, that like aspect isn't there. It's just like, hey, like we're all together. It's
Who
we just
remembers to
try
shut
to
the car door? That's like this.
yeah. So I always liked the like necessarily like fully communal aspect of doing improv. That it was always just like hell yeah, great job.
Cool.
And then it's just like everything's new every single time.
Yes,
Like
yes. You never have to worry about it being boring, which is what
yeah.
I have problems with. Oh, this again. Okay, yes, yes, we're doing this great little play. Same old thing, three sisters.
Yeah, yeah.
But
I always thought that, or
no,
just like with like Broadway, or like one of the reasons I didn't sort of like go into being an actor is I thought I was more of a theater actor than I was like film, and like the idea of like the best thing you could be doing is be on Broadway performing 6 nights a week, 8 shows for like 5 years. That's like you've hit it, right?
yeah,
That's the
that's
best.
huge.
That's the best case scenario. And I was like, that's a nightmare, And so I'm like, why is the like if like the best thing you could possibly do actually sort of doesn't sound fun to me. I was like, oh, I don't want to really
And it becomes
pursue.
work. And then it's
Exactly. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
so so you got this whole like acting background. You're able to play with what you do. You're able to put ideas into a play pretty rapidly. When you write, do you do that as well? Do you write kind of in an improv way, or do you come with an outline and go, okay, this is where I'm going with this? Because when I saw, I'm not going to talk about the current film at the moment, but I will. When I saw Homestead, I couldn't figure, and I'm really one of these people that I am focused on the writing, like infinitesimally focused on the writing of what people throw at me. And I always want to be the one that goes, yeah, I got it figured out the first 4 minutes. That's me. And people always know.
Uh-huh.
Like, we can't take her. She'll get it right away.
Uh-huh.
But that movie, I couldn't. I couldn't get it right away. There's too many like, whoa, okay, there it came. And then also being male and writing strong women. I don't know if you're into comics, but there's one comic writer who's a guy named Terry Moore. I can't remember all the comics. There's just so many rights, but Terry Moore really writes women's voices where I don't feel like I'm being talked down to or being. This is what a guy thinks a woman should say. Um,
Uh-huh.
and when I watched Homestead, I was kind of the same way. I was like, this is what I bald like. I could see in Aaron's character, what I would say if I was that character.
In which who's in Homestead, or
Yeah, the little girl, the girl.
oh, Betsy,
Yeah,
or yeah,
yeah,
Irene.
Monroe. Yeah,
Yeah, Irene. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. um yeah, well, I mean, I really appreciate that. I guess I just tried to write the characters honestly. I wasn't sort of
You're not surrounded by women who just beat it into you.
no, I don't think so. No,
Okay.
that's not that's not it. I mean, and sort of like the original kind of like motivation is, I thought it was like more interesting to focus it on a girl rather than a guy and like a kid.
Yeah. It
I
could
was
have been
like,
the
this
older
is
brother the whole time.
yeah,
And I was actually much more appreciative that it was a younger girl on a pioneer situation. Take that little house.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, but I wanted to have like sort of like the contrast between those two. Like Irene as a character is relatively like maladapted to like society, really. She's not like she's temperamental. She's not the super nice person, and but it's like in this situation, she's the one that uh, you need there.
She flies
And
by emotion, not by logic. But
yeah, yeah.
she has intent behind her emotion, which I really liked.
Yeah, well, it was also like, I mean, one of the things I also tried to do was like, not have anything kind of like happen sort of stupidly necessarily, like where it's like, oh, okay, they make the bad decision and go out, and then they just get into like a worse situation,
Yeah. Yeah.
because that thing types of things always bothers me, where they're sort of like, I wanted to make them like me making like correct and logical decisions throughout it, at least like things that I could kind of internally justify to myself. And one of actually the things that I think about the film is that what I realized when putting it together was like I actually didn't need to do that as much as I did. I spent a long time in the writing of just like being like, okay, why do they do this? What are they thinking? What do they know that the other people know? What do they think that they're going to do?
All the
And then
questions you asked. Yes.
yeah, and it's like what's a smart move to make here? And then when you kind of like put everything together, you're like, oh, I think it's just, and you watch other movies, it's like, oh yeah, it doesn't need to actually follow like perfectly logically. It's a little more like the rule of cool that you can get away with,
I also thought it's more like life. It's like you don't have it all scripted out and neat and following a pattern. And
yeah.
that's the other thing I really appreciated about it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, did you
Yeah.
write that while you were still in school, or was that because
uh
I don't see you as an old timer, so I'm guessing.
No, yeah, I am. I wrote it, I think, just after I graduated.
Okay.
I'd written this script right as I got out of school. That was sort of like, the semi-autobiographical. What's it like being a 20-something guy?
Oh, you're the one who did that. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was like,
Oh, what a
who's
hipster.
ever? Yeah, yeah. I was like, what? Like, this is a story people need to hear.
Wait, and I work at a coffee shop, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, it was sort of like, I mean, it was kind of like The Graduate, except not particularly interesting, like the sort of like, post graduation malaise of like, what am I actually doing with my life?
Yeah. Then
And
yeah, that becomes a film
yeah,
often. Yeah.
yeah, and like the self-insert character, he was a major in philosophy, because I was like, what does the major in philosophy do after? So
I went to art school. I have no idea.
yeah, but it was so I'd written that, and it was like, oh, this is what I want to make, type of thing that like you can kind of like shoot on the weekends type, and just
Sure.
like
And you
throw
just
it
did it as
together.
like a pitch piece that you could use to get funds to do some other stuff, or did you use it as a
No,
way to get an agent? Or I'm
I
trying
didn't
to
use it for
also,
anything.
yeah. Oh,
No,
you,
I didn't use it for anything. I wrote it, and I was like, I'm gonna make this, and then people were like, "Are you sure?" And I'm like, "Yeah, you're right. I shouldn't do that." So,
fifth grade. Oh wait.
yeah. So it was like, this isn't gonna sell anywhere, so I made. Then I was like, oh, I made Homestead. Really, was kind of like where that came from. It's like, oh, this is a fun idea.
But how did somebody look at your? Did they look at your student films and went, okay, this is a guy we can throw money behind. Let's make this flip.
No, no. This was like self-funded. It was self-funded. It was like like friends and family.
For those who don't know, Kickstarter and GoFundMe and everything pretty much did not exist when I went to school. So everybody had to go, Mom, can I borrow $50 to buy some film? And you actually bought film and you rolled it. And so, oh, no,
Yeah, no,
boy.
but but no, I didn't. Like we didn't sort of like get outside funding from like sort of bootstraps the whole thing.
It certainly looked like
Um,
a Warner Brothers picture, though. I mean, it really
yeah,
had that polished look.
yeah. I mean, that's what I was. I was really sort of proud of how we like made it. On a pretty small budget that we were able to get. Like, oh no, like, this looks like it's more expensive than it is.
Yeah,
You know.
it totally has that vibe. Like Netflix put all their money behind this month. So,
Yeah, yeah.
so
So
Did you so you got this film, you're writing other stuff, you want to do stuff that's interesting to you because
Hmm.
you're a creative guy. You're not one of these guys that sit around going, I think I'm gonna go into construction. Like my dad. But
Good.
what so what made you decide to write Dooba Dooba? Where did that
um.
I love
Yeah.
that whole vibe of Dooba Dooba because I as somebody who has autistic people in their family, and I'm not saying there's a character in this movie that's autistic. I'm not giving away anything about this movie, no matter what I talk about, except the title and maybe some of the characters. But that's it.
Uh,
Because you can't. There's no way you can give away this movie intentionally in any way, shape, or form because there's nothing like it that exists. There's
uh,
nothing.
yeah, that was kind of the idea. I wanted to do so like what it was in the after Homestead where we're like going through post and stuff. Amna, who's a producer on Homestead and is the lead actress in Dooba Dooba, we'd been talking about like doing a found footage film. Um, and then we landed on like security cameras, and it was sort of like we had a house in Georgia that we could shoot at, and it was like okay, like it was just like okay, Betsy and Amna are going to be in this movie. That was the idea, and like we don't have any money. Like this was just like just our bank accounts. Like
Betsy's a hell of a find, by the way. Where did you pick that kid up?
so she was in well, she was in Homestead, and she one of the actors or Jamie Bernadette from Homestead. We had cast Jamie, and she was like, "Do you have Irene cast?" And we were like, "No, we do not. We've been sending it out like on Backstage and all the
Of
things, looking
course.
for someone to act, and like there were girls who were fine, but it was just like nothing that like stood out in any particular way. And so she was like, oh, I know Betsy, and who'd been cast to play her daughter in another film that didn't happen. And so Betsy sent in a self-tape, and we're like, okay, that's okay, that's it. That's her.
You gotta have
So
the
that's how we found.
right pile of tomboy mixed with the right blend of, no bullshit, mixed with the right blend of I can read a script. Because
Yeah.
she totally comes across as somebody who's in her 40s. That kid.
Yeah. she's
Oh,
no, she's great. She's such a natural with everything.
yeah,
So
she was a hell of a
um,
find. I expect that you guys are gonna, as if you work as a that little group of people, the whole Jarmusch thing, you're gonna end up getting this mob of fantastic accolades as obviously they're coming at you. Um, what made you decide to write for a kid that age? What was that specific age period that kind of sat in your head?
well, with like Homestead, it was just I'd had this like image in my head of like a little girl with a shotgun just getting blown away, just like shooting a shotgun and flying across. I always thought that would be really funny. Um, uh, and so like that was sort of the thing, and it's like okay, she can't be 9. So it was like aged up, and one of the things I think is interesting about like that like teenage age and having that them be leads is that you can kind of get away with more in terms of like morality, or like they're like more forgivable,
Yeah,
because they're
hormone
figuring
hell.
them. Yeah, well, and they're just like like they could be kind of like bad people, and so I thought that was an interesting kind of like place to explore. And I mean, I love True Grit. I guess the Coen Brothers one I haven't actually seen the original, but yeah. Yeah. So so that was kind of just how I was like, oh yeah, I want to do that character, and the Arya in Game of Thrones
Oh
was
yeah.
my favorite.
Oh,
Yeah. So it was just sort of um, that's how I landed there. But I do think that just kind of teenagers are I think
volatile.
just like more yeah, and they're more. I think they're more interesting as far as a like like 20 somethings aren't terribly interesting, and either it's like, it's not going to be about like some 20 something people walking, that's like not really the vibe I wanted to go for. And then it's like either that or you focus on the parents, and it's like, oh, okay, well, I don't want to do about like parents protecting their, okay, so it's either like, so that's how I landed there.
Very cool.
um
Very cool. And I heard you speak about this in another interview. I'm not going to fake I didn't watch it, but I did. When you talked about why a 20-something-year-old is going to be babysitting a 16-year-old. And again, my family, I do have autistic people in my family, so I thought, oh, she must be autistic. That's the first thing I thought. That was my response.
Interesting.
I do.
um
That's what happens. So,
yeah. Well, I mean, like, yeah, how I ended on that, I was like, okay, like, yeah, why are these two people hanging out? Why would they be in the same place? Why would they be in a house,
yeah.
together? So it was just like, oh, just babysitting. And like, that's interesting with like a babysitter babysitting a 16-year-old girl. It's like, why is she babysit? Why does she need a babysitter? It's like she's got severe anxiety. And so it's like, that was kind of a lot of like the initial pieces of the character came out of just kind of the necessity of what we were doing.
Sure.
Um,
And
you know,
the idea of twins too, I love that. That I'm not saying the kid's a twin, I'm not saying the parents are twins. I'm just saying there's twins involved somewhere in this movie.
yeah.
I love the twist that there's twins in the movie, but it's not even that twisty. That's the least twisty part of the flick.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I just like twins. I knew a lot of twins growing
I
up,
bet
and
you too.
yeah, yeah. There's just a bunch of twins everywhere. Two of my best friends when I was a kid were twins. And so I don't know. I just find twins interesting. They're kind of like,
Have that weird
is
chemistry with each other too. The fact that one can like cut themselves, the other one will just feel it.
yeah, well, there's like a mythology kind of like around twins. Like, they feel like twins feel kind of just important, just like, just
Raymond
generally.
Romulus, the whole
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, that's why I like, yeah, I mean, in Homestead, technically, like, they're twins in Homestead, actually, but it's like, I just like twins. And
Yeah.
it was also, with this, it was kind of actually another necessity of, we didn't have that many actors. I didn't want to like write more actors, and so it's like, well, she can just have like, just, okay, it's an identical twin, and now we have,
Better on the
two
budget.
characters for the price of one. That's kind of how it.
The financials look so much easier now. Take that
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So,
Did you let the actors improv much?
I did not let them, but they, it was,
Is
these
that
are long. There isn't much like explicit, or there isn't really, I don't think, like any explicit improvisation in there. But like, it was like, yeah, if you don't get the lines right, and you like skip a line or like need to go back, just, fill it in.
okay?
Because the nature of how we shot it, and it's like, actors hadn't necessarily memorized the whole script, front to back, perfectly. And so it was, and these are long scenes, so it's not like you can have like 2 minutes or like cut, go again or whatever. It was just, these are playing out, and I wasn't gonna like come in and be like, no, go back, say the line right, the way I put it on the page. That was mostly the extent of improvisation. I think that there might have been some things that like we workshopped in there, just, oh, you could do this, but it was
I
it
did.
was pretty much.
I did think that the naming of the family names, I'm sure that came into your life as part of it, but the idea that the characters named after presidents of the United States.
Oh,
Good choice.
well, the way that came about was, we had initially written, I just wrote like Anna and Betsy as the, because like, as the main actors, and I wrote the parents, their name was were James and Lily, and I just, after Harry Potter's parents.
I was wondering. I didn't say that, but yes, I was wondering.
Yeah. Well, I switched, but then I was like, okay, we need to change the names. And I think Michelle, one of the producers, Betsy's mother, said, we could probably get like this local radio DJ to cover us if we changed her name to Monroe. And I was like, okay, sure, yeah, that's a weird name to name someone. It's not like super. And so it's like, oh, that's a president. So everyone else will be named after presidents. That's like a fun naming scheme.
Yeah, exactly. It was awesome.
Um,
One of the things I like visually, first of all, when you first start the film, you think you're in the wrong film. You think you're
uh-huh,
you think you're watching a commercial for something else or something cut from something else. And it reminded me, you're probably way too young to remember this. There was a guy named Moby who did this album called Play. Um,
uh-huh,
where he took a lot of songs from the 30s and 40s and he blended them into this like dubstep style.
uh-huh.
And that's what it reminded me
Yeah.
of. It's like Moby
Uh-huh.
in the opening.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, there's a lot of kind of remixy aspects to it, supposed to feel like, created on a computer, that it's just, thrown together like somebody's little sort of art project. That's how it's supposed to be, like a montage that and
Because there were so
yeah.
many different cameras used, or the appearance of different cameras used, and it looked like you had 16 millimeter at some points or 8 millimeter at some points, and then it looked like you had 4K video at some points, and
Hmm.
one of my favorite shots is the keyhole.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Love that shot. That was
Yeah. That was great. I think it was actually David Wright, our cinematographer's idea. He was like, we were sort of like just going to do the shot from the hallway, and it was kind of like, how are we going to do it? It was just basically one shot. And he's like, what if we had the, like looking through the keyhole? And so it's like, oh, this is an awesome idea. And so then I actually filmed that shot. That was that was me with my
That's
iPhone.
hard to do, man. That is really hard.
No.
I had a student work, and he said, I want to make my student. She said, I want to make him look like he was sick overnight. I said, why don't you use a toilet seat? She said, what? I said, yeah, toilet seat. Yeah. So it worked.
um,
But
um,
when you were developing the characters to begin with, did you have a story written out first, or were the people kind of formed in your head that these were the people you
uh,
wanted to write about?
no, it was the story basically. For this one, it was like much more like improvisational, I think, than you should actually write scripts. I wrote it, very quickly, like over a weekend, actually.
Wow.
Um,
Oh,
uh,
really?
yeah, yeah,
You jerk.
um,
Oh, really? Damn.
I mean, there was like a couple rewrites, but it was mostly just like that one, like kind of sitting down, drinking coffee, just like trying to get through it. And like I think that, I mean, it's one of those things about like when you write and you like kind of sprint through it, like the thing kind of contains itself. You don't really have as much time to like overthink something, and it goes in like these different directions. And so I had like a basic outline of it. It was like, these are kind of like the beats, like, oh, that could
This one I
happen,
want
and
to
then
hit.
this happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then it was sort of like, connecting those pieces and just like walking through it. And there's a good amount of that where like the tone of the film sort of, comes through as like you're writing it, and like the aspects of these characters. But, like explicit backstory and all of these different things were not like quite, weren't really like there in the initial idea. It's like,
Yeah, there
this is
wasn't the depth, but Monroe reminded me of a cat. And that I know that sounds odd, but she would do things and I would think all cats are assholes, and yep. She's
I've never heard that
cat
description.
there.
Yeah. That's a great description over that.
And you think, and at first you think she's just, this innocent thing. But it's a
Yeah.
horror film festival, that's all I'll say. So, where do you think your next project's going to go? Is this going to be the because you were in the this is where people sometimes pick themes. Like I'm not a fan of Tarantino. I know people are going to look at me like I'm on crack.
um,
Only
uh-huh,
because I feel like he's doing the same movie. It's just different chapter of the book. It's the
yeah, yeah.
same book. It's just different chapters. And he doesn't really explore new chapters. It's just our new ideas, except for Kill Bill, which I think he got a separate book out of it, but maybe manga. Um, when you're writing and you're developing, like the characters from the Homestead were all in this, wild frontier world, this wild, this whole new thing. The characters in this film are in this, new world where everybody's under camera now. I'm not going to talk about the parents because that'll give away too much, but everything's under camera. Where do you think your next world will exist?
Um, I don't know. What one that people are interested in paying for?
Asshole cats, yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm sure Betsy
Uh,
will be in it. No.
yeah. I mean, it really depends on kind of like what the thing is. I just like I hope that like we can get sort of like some production company or something to like foot the bill, and I have a bunch of different
That
kind of.
is the world of the artist, is like somebody will see this and go, that's the one I want to work with.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to like sort of be like this is exactly what this is like fully like my thing now, or like need to be like, hey, this is fully like the next project. Like I've got like a bunch of different projects that I'm sort of like working on or like want to do, and it's a little bit like which one kind of goes, and like finding things that's like no, like I would fully like if this one were to go, I'd be fully into doing this next. I mean, I just started writing a boxing movie actually.
Oh, a whole new world. Okay, cool.
Yeah. I mean, it's not really like explicitly like inspired by like the Paul brothers,
Uh-huh.
like, but I just there's that um, there's that aspect to some of those. I mean, even like Euphoria and The Idol and this kind of you know uh, different world of uh, this kind of like Gen Z hedonism,
Yeah.
right? And like that's like a whole kind of like movement in and of itself. And like I don't really like I don't actually like really watch Euphoria, but I think that type of world is really interesting, and there's it is also like very sinister, and I think that like the Paul brothers kind of exemplify that type of hedonism and like Andrew Tate-ness of it all,
Oh,
and I think that's a really like interesting world to explore, not in like the exact way that that's going, but they're uh so that was kind of one thing that I've just like just been working on recently. We'll see how that if people would like bite on that sort of thing.
one of the
Um,
things that I really thought about is that your films are very much like video games in some ways.
Interesting. Uh-huh. Okay.
No,
Yeah.
in that they put your mind into somebody's accomplishing something, somebody's accomplishing something, whoa, you know, here comes the monster,
Uh-huh.
here comes the thing, something else changed. There's a lot of surprises. There's a lot of twists. There's a lot of unexpected, and I think that's what's lacking in so many films is there's a lot of so many tropes and so many, oh yeah, that again. And now, when I see some, a filmmaker like your stuff, and I see something that's a story that's being told that really hasn't been told, really in
Uh-huh.
any way possible. There's no other way this could have been made 20 years ago. There's no way this could have been made, you know, uh, with somebody with their, Super 8 doing this.
Uh-huh.
Um, what do you use for tech, or do you just kind of play with what cameras you have, or do you use your iPhone? I mean,
I mean, for Dooba Dooba, yeah, it was like iPhone, GoPros. We had Sony FS6 and some like A7Ss. It was just sort of like what we had to make it with. So that was doing Dooba Dooba, and like I didn't really care. I was like, I know that we're just gonna sort of like compress these and like make it look like a VHS in the end. Like I knew that was where we were going, and so kind of like the quality of camera wasn't like super important and kind of would draw back even to some degree. So but with with Homestead, that was like shot on a red dragon and a black magic.
Oh,
Yeah, so that was funny because the red dragon sort of the mount broke sort of like halfway through. It just stopped working like
oh.
perfectly well. Like it was when you would rack the focus, it would
Uh-huh.
shake. It would shake the
I
lens.
lived on Panavision for years, so I completely.
Yeah. And so then I was like, oh, let's, the DP Lisa Stoll had another camera. She had Black Magic, and I was like, oh, can we switch to that? She's like, yeah, we can switch to that. And then the Black Magic she had way better low light than the Red Dragon, and we were just like doing so many night shoots, and it was like hard to just like fill the freaking screen with light, and you had to have the generator going. But like with the Black Magic, you could kind of just set up a few panels actually and have it work. And I was like, oh, okay, well maybe let's just use the Black Magic from now
Isn't it
on.
fun though when you're writing and you're directing? It's like you can hand the tech to somebody else and say, "You take care of that. That's your job. I do this. This is my job." That's the cool.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the best. It's like so when you're not making films and you're not writing films, what do you do with your fun life, Mr.
uh, I mean, editing. Like I've been editing verticals. I don't know if you know about verticals, but they're do you know about them? There's like these like the soap operas.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, yeah. So
Discuss them because there's going to be people who have no idea what you're talking about, and I do.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But they're like vertical soap operas that are like cut into like 1 to 2 minute chunks, and you pay for like 50 cents to watch an episode. Like to watch a whole one, it costs like $20 to $40. They're feature length
Yeah.
these stories. But that's what I've been
They're
doing.
huge in South Korea. They're huge in Japan. They're huge.
Yeah,
It's starting to get bigger in the United States. I know that you're,
yeah.
but yeah, I have friends in South Korea that's like, you should have been doing this. We should have been doing this together. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, they're crazy. I'm like, who watches this stuff? But
Where's because I animate. It's like, do a webtoon with me. I'll write it. You do the animation. I'm like, we'll make millions of dollars.
yeah,
I know how much work that means for me.
yeah. I mean, they can make good money. I get. I don't fully like understand like how much money is coming in. But I guess if it's like I said it was like this is the most premium content there is because what other thing costs $40 to watch on your phone?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, uh,
Unless you're on a site that you shouldn't be watching on your phone on a bus in public with 5 people around you. Yeah.
Those are still normally cheaper. I don't think it's 40
As
bucks.
you would know. Yeah, I lived in the Valley in LA for a while, so I'm very aware of that type of film company. So it's like, what's Joe doing next door? Oh yeah, he's got a
oh my god,
the joy of living in LA. Every type of film company you can imagine is next door to wherever you.
yeah.
Um, are you in a lot of film festivals now? Is that what's going? Is that what the plan is for this film? Is just do film festivals?
Yeah, yeah. Well, we've been doing it for a while. I mean, we premiered last October at Nightmares, and so have basically just been on the festival circuit since then, which has been it's been a really good time.
You hit South by
And then
Southwest.
no, that would have been fun. We didn't even submit to them. Yeah,
It used to be
I
so easy to get in, and now it's just like
yeah, that's what I heard.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's like San Diego Comic Con. It used to be you could everybody that was an artist would have something in somewhere. I was in like 6 bands and went to South by Southwest a dozen times, and it's like by the end of it, it's like, oh no, not again.
Uh, yeah, everything's so corporate now.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
like, oh gee, Pepsi's sponsoring our stage. Great. We have
yeah,
in the performance.
but yeah, I mean, we're doing that. It should like we do have distribution for the film, and so I think it should be coming out by the end of the year. That's kind of the plan. So it'll be.
They're gonna
I
hit
don't really.
the art theaters, because man, this is gonna hit hard when it hits. Because again, There is nothing like it out there. And I watch literally from I get up at 4:20 in the morning. I start at
Wow,
7 a.m. watching horror movies. That's
really?
yeah. And
Wow.
I watch until 7 p.m. every night, all horror movies all the time. That's my life.
um,
When I'm not broadcasting. So
no.
when this hits, it is gonna be a monster because people are gonna say this has not been seen before. This style has not been seen before. This way of thinking. Where did you pick up all the found footage?
That's like a lot of yeah, the literal found footage.
Yeah, literally.
Um, uh, yeah, that's like online, like public. Uh,
Smithsonian, the Mutter Museum.
yeah, well, the American like medical library where they have for, like fair use, whatever the
Yeah, for
what's
the
the
for the
public
yes, public
domain
domain cleared
films.
photos. Yes.
Yeah,
My
yeah.
my husband is an IP, so IP law, so that's all I hear about all day when he's home.
Uh-huh. Yeah, but that's where we just found it on online. So they're out there. There's some crazy ass videos out there. So
Some of them are how-tos, and that's even scarier.
yeah.
I love this
Well,
show that I love.
so
I love this movie. I do.
um, um,
And
yeah,
why
but
did
I
you pick Dooba Dooba as the name? I mean, is that just something you guys would say to each other for fun when you're smoking doobies? I mean, what? What is that?
no, no. When I was like writing it and trying to like figure out what the sort of I just like wrote like Dooba Dooba, and I was like, oh, that's a fun word. And it's just it's a word that's like so stupid, and to like make someone say it is like infantilizing, and it's embarrassing. It's like it's um uh it's its own form of like kind of like abuse. It's like if you can like force
Sure.
someone to do this in your house, you like have control over them.
It's the start of the
uh
control. Sure.
yeah, and it's like it's a way to like subtly humiliate someone. And I wasn't even fully sure really like Michelle and Amna were when I was like what should we name the movie? We're like, oh, it should be named Dooba Dooba. And I was like, I was thinking about that, but I just think it's such a stupid title. Um uh,
It's gonna stick in everybody's head. It's perfect.
Yeah, yeah. So, but then it was like, okay, yeah, it's called Dooba Dooba. I just sort of settled on that, and like, I can't really imagine why was I like thinking it should be named something else.
And you gotta sing it to
Um,
the Louie Louie song. Yeah, do
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I high five you left and right because I think this is probably one of the coolest horror films, and it's true. It said psychological horror, and it's all the right notes in the right ways. Um, and the actors aren't bullshit. They are not, people that are just telling lines and relaying a story that they read. They're there, and it feels.
yeah.
What was the
Yeah.
casting like? I'm gonna close it out on
Um,
casting stories.
uh, um, uh, well, it was very simple, for casting Amna and Betsy. It was like, well,
Really
they're
tough.
yeah, they're in the movie. So it was just
They gave you
the
the
two
20
pair.
bucks. They got
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was hard negotiations. Um, so yeah, Betsy was a real like bastard.
ow, 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 my arm.
Yeah. Um, but so yeah, we didn't have any money for this, so it was like we like put it out on Actors Access. And we're just like getting self-tape submissions, and it was just kind of like whatever you kind of like cast off the headshot, like is this viable or whatever. And then like with the reels, and so we got some self-tapes back, and I mean basically like Aaron and Winston were like the two like most standout things, performances. With Aaron, I think there wasn't really any like discussion with that. It was just like, yeah, she's obviously the like fully understanding everything.
And the best hair.
Yeah, yeah, oh my god. Yeah, no, when she came in with the wig,
Oh
she
my
was like,
God.
she
Oh,
she showed up and she was like, "Do you want me to wear?" Like, I brought a wig, and I was like, "Do you want me to wear it?" I was like, "Sure, let's try it." And then,
it just
but
goes
like,
so well with their backstory, side story. Yeah, parallel story.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Like she's like the type of person that would wear this wig. So, um,
And nailed
uh,
in hard. It was
yeah.
great.
And then with Winston, it was sort of like it was also like very obvious, for him. But there was one other actor who was like, kind of like doing the role, and it was like, oh, it's like he kind of like did the words, just generally. I was like, okay, yeah, you're performing it kind of, how it is on the page, and it was like that works. And then with Winston, it was like no, he like took it in a totally
He lived
different
that life.
direction than it's like he necessarily. Yeah, I was like, oh, like this is
I can see him
this is
doing that.
perfect.
Yeah.
Um, uh, but no, I mean, so uh, it was just immediately obvious, really, with both of them. And it was like with Aaron, there was no backup, and with like Winston, it was like we could have another guy, but that's basically, it's not going to be like nearly as good. And then they freaking show up, and it's like, oh my god, it's like you guys. It
And
was
they
really
work
just like
so much
understanding.
together. They're great. Together, they're just like seamless. You would think that they've known each other for 30 years.
Yeah, I know they were so good, so professional. Just getting to it, and like they are, both not from Georgia, so they came out for it. Um, and then yeah, Billy, who was the kid at the end, he was we called up a local like theater company, like, oh, any good actors, and so he came in, but that was how we landed on him. But it was, yeah. No, it was a pretty simple casting process, and I'm so like, it might not have turned out that way, but it was like, I mean, like Winston and Aaron were really the only choices ever.
Yeah.
um
They
and
want to
so it
work.
was like, oh yeah, if it hadn't done it, if it hadn't been them, I don't know exactly what we would have done. You just get
No,
lucky.
they are perfect. They are absolutely
Yeah.
perfect. Because if this ever does a sequel, and I can see why it would, you know,
Hmm.
you
Yeah.
know, a boot or whatever. Um, um, wow. I mean, yeah, you got a hell of a group there, and it's amazing seeing how well everybody works together, and how you don't come across as a tyrant or an asshole either. So that helps for them, I'm sure.
I'd like to think so. I don't think
Tyrants.
yeah. I, I think I'm a nice guy on set. I don't think I'm terribly different. I think I also get like quieter. I think is one thing. Where it's just like, oh,
Sorry, the dog is hard
it's
by me. Sorry about
oh
that.
yeah.
You
But
hear a weird whistling. It's like, no, I'm getting stabbed.
no, yeah, but I like to think that I create a good environment for everybody. So
Ehrland, you
um,
are awesome. And I know that I'm like astonishingly glad and grateful that I got to talk to you at the beginning of your career, because chances are in 5 years, I'm not going to be able to even know where your email address or if you have Instagram or if they exist in the future. There are using our grayscale computer stuff, but you're phenomenal. You're absolutely phenomenal. Your writing is exquisite, and I am looking forward to seeing more twists. I am grateful that you are writing, and I'm grateful that you're making the films that you're making. And I am honestly, I think I'll see this again. Yeah.
well, thank you. I really appreciate that. You actually don't get that much praise around. Like around. So it's really nice to hear that. Like
Well,
the
I
film
wasn't
is,
going to give you the lyrics critique that Monroe gives, but
Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh my God. Oh, that was
there's
so
so many
funny.
great scenes in that film. There's so many great scenes. Like I'm gonna go back and just go, see, I missed that part. I know I'm gonna. So, it's so good.
No,
And
no.
I detect a huge future for you, because there's no way that somebody with your skill and your talent isn't gonna just rise above. There's just such
Well,
a
thank you. I mean, I hope that like this does something, for my career, but I'm just happy that it's
it's not, you
it's
get that
getting
second
out there.
job as a barista.
Yeah, yeah.
Doing vertical.
No, doc, I've been a barista before. It's a good job.
We've all been there. I did stand-up
Yeah.
comedy for 44 years. We've all been,
Oh my God. Oh
yeah,
my God.
yeah.
Dude,
My second job was always like, oh, I have to wear a dress.
um, yeah. Oh, I've tried stand up a couple times. It's just it's so difficult, you
It's a
know.
great way to embarrass yourself in front of people that aren't your therapist. That's all.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I applaud you for that. Because improv, you can just go up and be like,
Yeah, and if you're lucky, you get to work with team members who are actually our team members and not like, I have an ego and I'm going to be the star of this stage. That's
yeah,
least favorite people to improv with. But yeah, that was really
yeah,
so. I
yeah.
know we've been an hour and I've taken up so much of your time, but I want to thank everybody who's been coming to the Portland Horror Film Festival to see Ehrland Hollingsworth's lovely Dooba Dooba. It's a family film.
Yeah, it's about a family. Yeah, exactly.
Yes. There's
Yeah,
you don't have to worry about the cat or the dog. And I wouldn't bring a child under 16. Well, maybe a child as 16.
yeah,
Do take note of his name because it's going to be a monster in the next few years, I have a feeling. And thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it.
yeah. Thank you for having me. This is
Thanks
great.
for being had.
Yeah.
This has been antisocial from the antisocial horror-ish hour. Thank you so much.
Thank you.